So I got this thing running. I drove it a couple times and then I drove it to work, and then when I got off work it just started smoking whenever I turned the key. And I noticed, me and a coworker noticed that this wire was actually melting, so I thought it was just shorting out on something, so I taped it with duct tape and it just keeps melting. So I think that there's a short somewhere, coming from the solenoid. So I had it towed here. I go ahead and jack up this side, take off the exhaust manifold, see if there's any obvious wire that's just shorting out and grounding out. And hopefully I can get this solution fixed, because everything did all right, but I only got to drive it a few times. So here's to always working on this thing. So I got this off in 20 minutes, and then I'm finding lots of burnt stuff down here, so that's probably our issue. The wire got burned. I think this appears I just put this up here. It's the O2 sensor, and it's yeah, that's burnt. That's crispy. So I'm gonna take all this heat wrap stuff that I put on here a while ago and take it off and see if any of this is burnt, or maybe that. I almost feel like there should be two wires going to this O2 sensor, and there's just one, so I don't think that this is shorting out, but I don't know. I really have no idea. Ow. And I'm also gonna replace the burnt wire once I know everything's working. But this sucks. Always working on this thing, it sucks. Alright, so the starter still works. Actually, I got the starter to work. So I think what was going on is I had some heat wrap going around the wires. I think they were arcing out onto the solenoid. Hopefully it didn't damage the solenoid at all, but it works now. I just got to figure out how to keep these wires from getting melted. So I have up here like wrapping. Oh, that looks fantastic. I have wrapping up here that goes around that wiring harness so it doesn't melt. It's just right next to the exhaust. I have no idea how to get it to not melt. I mean, I could honestly lengthen the wires, cut them, splice in some new wires, go around underneath the starter. I don't even know. Does that look fine? No. No, it doesn't. How about this? That looks okay. How about this? I think that looks okay. I don't know what's going on back there. Got a little chewed up, I guess. Oh well. So I'm gonna figure out what to do to keep these wires from getting all melted. All right, so I took off my heat shield because it might have been the culprit arcing out on the solenoid. And I put this thing back on. It's like a metal heat shield that goes around the wires. I think this will be good enough because the tube comes up right here and then it kind of exhaust hovers up here. So hopefully that's good enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw the manifold back on, and I did end up replacing my burnt wire and added a little connector right there. I just had that wire laying around. I wasn't gonna splice in something from scratch. It already had the pigtail connection, that the little loop-de-loop. So yeah, hopefully this works. I mean, I don't really know. And everything hooked back up. I swear if I ever take this manifold off again, which I know I'm gonna take all that exhaust wrap off. I mean, I just hate it. It's all falling apart and everything, but yeah, everything's all back together. So I guess the last thing we can do is go for a little test ride, make sure that everything works good, and yeah, so here we go. Alright, so here's what we came up with. I had the switch lying around, and then I just spliced in some wires, and then I had these alligator clips that I kind of just spliced in there, and you know, it's not the prettiest. Like, these alligator clips aren't that big, but I think it'll be big enough to go on the battery and then the starter terminal, and we'll just see if our issue is like the ignition wire or if it's the solenoid, because the solenoid should turn over when I do this, and then if it is that, then I'm assuming that it's the ignition wire, but I mean, I honestly have no idea. So yeah, this should hopefully work. And I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can take off this wrap without taking the manifold off. Ooh, I might not be able to do that. I might have to take this manifold off again, even though I just took it off and put it back on, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. And hopefully we can get this starter issue figured out for like the dozen times that I've tried to figure this out. Okay, so I finally figured it out. Did a process of testing and eliminating. I got my switch thing to work, and I just hooked up one wire at a time to the solenoid and then figured out which one's wrong, messed up. So it's the ignition wire. So I started tracing it, and then under the dash, and apparently when I hooked up my RPM gauge like a long time ago, I had hooked it up into that wire, and for whatever reason, after like 3 or 4 years, it started shorting out. So I had to just find a different power supply for the RPM gauge, but it still works. The thing with the RPM gauge is that I was using both the accessory wire and the constant power wire, but I have it on a toggle switch, so I didn't need to use both those wires. So maybe that's why it started shorting out. I don't know. But I have my exhaust manifold. I cut off all of the heat shield, the heat wrap, and it's kind of rusty, so I'm gonna try and tomorrow paint it. I have a whole bunch of this high heat black spray paint from the 4-wheeler project. I bought way too much of it, so I'm gonna hopefully not have rain tomorrow, and I can get like a box in the backyard, like a cardboard box, and actually paint this thing. I wanted to just slap it all together and go drive it, but I definitely want to paint that. Let's see about this side. This manifold has been off like maybe once or twice. I mean, it's rusty. I might take it off one of these days and paint it, but it's not as bad because it doesn't have the heat wrap on it. And I've had no issues with this side of the engine. I've always had issues with that side, and I hate working on it because I get covered in the fiberglass stuff, and you know, I could wear gloves, but it's so hard getting to the bolts in the back, like this back bolt. It's so hard getting to it when you're wearing gloves. So yeah, this part of this project should be finished tomorrow. Oh, and also, we cleaned this up down here. There's only 2 wires going to this because that's all we need. I think this is like the O2 sensor, and then there's, I don't know what this was from the old 2.8. I think it was like oil pressure sensor or something that we don't use anymore. I don't know. There's all this stuff that we literally do not use anymore. Like these were the TBI system, which fucking sucked. So maybe one day we can go through and delete all this, or like get a own harness or build our own harness or something. I don't even know, but that's what we got for now, and hopefully tomorrow get it all finished up. Alright, so I went ahead with a drill and wire wheel, kind of got some of this rust off, and then I wiped it down with some acetone, and I already did 1 coat. I'm going to try and get 2 coats in. I just got this kind of hanging up in my shed, and using, what is this, Rust-Oleum, so should work pretty good. Hopefully not rust. I wish I could do this with my other manifold and like my entire exhaust, but You know, I'll just get around to it one of these days.